My fiancé died in a terrible accident while I was sleeping in the car, which put me in a coma for 11 days. When I woke up, they told me what happened, and it was the most painful thing I had ever heard in my life. It happened a month before our wedding. The day started like a dream. I remember waking up early, the sunlight pouring through the window, and hearing his voice in the kitchen. He was humming some tune I didn't recognize, and the smell of coffee filled the air. I felt so lucky, so complete. We were just a month away from the wedding, and everything felt perfect. That morning, we were heading to look at wedding dresses. I had been so nervous about finding the right one, but he kept telling me I'd look beautiful in anything. "I can't wait to see you walk down that aisle," he'd said, smiling at me in a way that made me forget all my worries. We got into the car, and the excitement of the day was buzzing between us. He was driving, and I was scrolling through pictures of dresses on my phone, asking for his opinion even though I knew he didn't care much about the details. He just cared about me. The road stretched out in front of us, straight and clear. The sun was warm, and the steady rhythm of the car lulled me into a strange calm. I leaned back in the seat and told him I was going to close my eyes for a minute. "Just rest," he said softly. "I'll wake you when we get there." Those were the last words I heard from him. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the stillness. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of machines. My body felt strange, weak, like it didn't belong to me. The lights above were harsh, making my head pound. I didn't know where I was. The last thing I remembered was being in the car with him. I had closed my eyes for just a moment. I was supposed to wake up to his voice, to the sound of the engine, to his soft laugh teasing me about how nervous I was about the wedding. But this was different. The air was cold and sterile. There was no warmth, no sound of him. Just the beep of a monitor and the faint shuffle of someone moving around me. When I tried to move, pain shot through my body. My limbs felt heavy, and my head throbbed like it was being squeezed. It was then that I saw a nurse standing by the door. Her expression was a mix of relief and caution, as if she'd been waiting for this moment but dreading it at the same time. She explained where I was, but her words didn't fully sink in. "A coma," she said. "An accident." Words that felt detached from me, like they belonged to someone else's story. My thoughts were blurry, but one thing burned clearly in my mind: where is he? When she told me he was gone, it didn't feel real. The words were just noise. My heart stopped, my chest tightened, and the room seemed to spin. He wasn't supposed to be gone. We had plans. We had a life we hadn't even started yet. I remember crying, loud, uncontrollable sobs that echoed in the room. My body trembled, and the pain in my chest felt sharper than anything physical. I couldn't stop, couldn't breathe. The nurses tried to calm me, placing their hands on my arms, speaking softly, but it didn't help. He was gone. That was the only thing I could hear in my head. The pain didn't hit all at once. It came in waves, crashing over me again and again. Each time I thought I couldn't feel worse, another realization would strike. He was gone. Forever. The life we had planned, the future we had dreamed of, it was all ripped away in an instant. I couldn't sit still. The room felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in on me. I tried to get up, but my legs wouldn't cooperate, and my body ached with every movement. The nurses kept telling me to rest, but how could I rest? The one person who made me feel safe, the one who kept me grounded, was gone. I wanted to scream, to cry, to throw something, but I couldn't even find the strength to do that. Instead, I just sat there, staring at the wall, feeling like a hollow shell. It was like my soul had left with him, and all that was left was my body, barely functioning. The hours passed slowly, dragging me through an endless fog of disbelief and despair. I kept thinking, this isn't real. It can't be real. I clung to the hope that I'd wake up and find him there, smiling, teasing me about how dramatic I was being. But deep down, I knew that wasn't going to happen. The nurse came back to check on me, her voice soft and kind, but I couldn't hear her. Everything she said felt distant, like it was coming from underwater. My mind was too loud, filled with memories of him, his laugh, the way he'd hold my hand, the way he'd look at me like I was the only thing that mattered. I wanted to cry, but I was too numb. I wanted to move, but I was paralyzed by the weight of it all. Every breath felt like a chore, every beat of my heart a cruel reminder that I was still here and he wasn't. I didn't know what to do. How do you keep living when the person who was your whole world is gone? The nurse came in again the next day. I hadn't moved. I hadn't spoken. I just stared at the window, watching the daylight shift, not really seeing anything. She sat by my bed, hesitating, as if she was deciding whether to say what she needed to say. "You're going to have questions," she said gently, her voice barely above a whisper. "About what happened?" At first, I didn't respond. I didn't want to know. I didn't want to hear the details because knowing meant accepting, and I wasn't ready for that. But something inside me, some small, broken piece of me, needed answers. She told me it had happened on a straight road, a quiet stretch of highway that should have been safe. Another driver, coming from the opposite direction, had miscalculated while trying to overtake a truck. He swerved into our lane, hitting us head-on. The impact had crushed the driver's side of the car, where he was sitting. She explained that the paramedics had done everything they could, but his injuries were too severe. He had held on for a while, conscious enough to ask about me, but he didn't make it to the hospital. The truck driver had walked away with minor injuries. The man in the other car, the one who caused it all, survived too. But my fiancé, my everything, was gone. As she spoke, I felt my chest tighten, my breath quicken. The grief that had been a steady ache suddenly became unbearable. It wasn't fair. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was just driving, just trying to take me to pick out a wedding dress. I thought about how he must have felt in those last moments, scared, in pain, thinking about me. I hated that I hadn't been awake, that I hadn't been there to hold his hand, to tell him it would be okay. My mind raced with questions that had no answers. Why him? Why us? I broke down again, sobbing so hard I couldn't breathe. The nurse tried to comfort me, but her words didn't reach me. Nothing did. I felt like I was sinking, drowning in a grief so deep and vast that I would never come up for air. The days that followed were a blur. Or maybe they weren't even days, just one long, endless moment of pain and emptiness. Time didn't feel real anymore. I couldn't tell when 1 hour ended and another began. Everything felt gray, muted, like I was stuck in a fog. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about him, replaying every memory over and over in my head. His laugh, his smile, the way he used to hold my hand while we drove. Every thought was like a knife, cutting deeper and deeper. I couldn't stop wondering about the what-ifs. What if I hadn't fallen asleep? What if we had left the house 5 minutes earlier or later? What if I had asked him to take a different route? Every question led to the same answer. He was gone, and there was nothing I could do to change it. I felt so guilty, even though I knew it wasn't my fault. But I kept thinking, I should have been awake. I should have been there with him. It felt like I had failed him somehow, like I had let him face those final moments alone. The nurses tried to get me to eat, to drink, to sit up, but I couldn't. The weight of the grief pinned me to the bed, and every time I tried to move, it felt like I was being crushed under the weight of my own emotions. They brought in a counselor to talk to me, but I barely heard her words. All I could think about was him. I kept picturing him in that car, the panic he must have felt, the pain he went through. It haunted me. At night, I would close my eyes and beg for sleep, but when it came, it was filled with nightmares. I'd see his face, reaching for me, calling my name, and I'd wake up gasping for air, my chest heaving like I was drowning. The day came when they said I could go home. I should have felt relieved, maybe even happy to leave the cold, sterile walls of the hospital, but instead, I felt terrified. The thought of going back to the world, to the life we had planned together, without him, it was too much. A nurse brought in a wheelchair and helped me into it. My body was weak, my legs barely holding me up, but the heaviness I felt inside was worse. They handed me a bag with my belongings, and there, on top of everything, was the engagement ring he had given me. It hit me like a punch to the stomach. I couldn't take my eyes off it. This ring was supposed to symbolize a future we'd never have. My hand shook as I slipped it onto my finger, where it had always been. I couldn't take it off, not now, not ever. The ride home was quiet. The nurse who wheeled me out tried to say something encouraging, but I didn't hear her. My mind was back in that car, reliving the moment before I fell asleep, the last time everything was okay. When I got to the house, it felt like stepping into a tomb. His jacket was still on the back of the chair, his shoes by the door. Everything looked exactly as we had left it that morning, but it felt empty, lifeless. I walked through the house like a ghost, touching his things, smelling his cologne, feeling the ache of his absence in every corner. It was unbearable. I sat on the edge of the bed we had shared, staring at the spot where he used to sleep. I could almost hear his voice, see him smiling at me, telling me everything would be okay. But it wasn't okay. It would never be okay again. The first few days at home were suffocating. I couldn't bring myself to touch anything of his. His coffee mug was still on the counter, his toothbrush in the bathroom, his favorite sweater folded on the chair. Each object felt like a piece of him, and I was terrified of moving anything, as if that might erase him completely. I didn't leave the house. I barely left the bed. The world outside seemed so distant, so alien, and I couldn't imagine stepping into it without him. Every time I thought about going out, my chest tightened, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. Food didn't matter. Sleep didn't come easily. My phone buzzed a few times, messages from friends or family checking in, but I couldn't bring myself to answer. What could I say? That I was broken? That I didn't know how to keep going? I spent most of my time in silence, staring at the walls or replaying memories in my head. I thought about the first time we met, the way he laughed when he proposed, the mornings we spent planning our future. Those moments used to bring me joy, but now they were like daggers, sharp and unforgiving. Sometimes, I'd find myself standing in the doorway of what would have been the nursery. We hadn't started decorating it yet, but we'd talked about it endlessly. He wanted a space theme, planets and rockets on the walls. I wanted something softer, with clouds and stars. Now, it was just an empty room, filled with plans that would never come to life. The nights were the worst. I'd lie awake for hours, clutching his pillow, hoping to catch a trace of his scent. When I did fall asleep, I'd dream about him, dreams where he was still here, still laughing, still holding me. And then I'd wake up, and the emptiness would hit me all over again. I wasn't living. I was just existing, stuck in a loop of grief and memories. Weeks turned into months, but time didn't heal anything. It just dulled the sharp edges of the pain, leaving behind a constant, heavy ache. I still couldn't bear to change anything in the house. His jacket stayed on the chair, his toothbrush in its place. It was as if keeping things the same might somehow keep him closer. People started to visit less. At first, there were casseroles left on my doorstep, tearful messages, and hugs I didn't want. But over time, the world moved on without me. Friends went back to their routines, family stopped calling as often. I was left alone with my grief, and honestly, I preferred it that way. One day, a well-meaning friend stopped by unannounced. She brought flowers and a bright smile, but her words stung like salt on a wound. "You need to start moving on," she said. "He wouldn't want you to live like this." I nodded, but inside I was screaming. How could anyone understand? Moving on felt like betrayal. Every time I even considered doing something for myself, cleaning out his closet, going for a walk, calling someone back, it felt like letting go of him, like erasing him. But there were moments, fleeting as they were, where I wondered if maybe she was right. Sitting in that house, surrounded by reminders of what I'd lost, wasn't bringing him back. It wasn't helping me heal. I started small. One morning, I stepped outside and felt the sun on my face for the first time in months. I walked to the end of the street and back, my legs shaky, my heart heavy, but I did it. Still, every step forward felt wrong, like I was leaving him behind. It took me months to gather the courage, but one day, I decided to visit his grave. The thought of seeing his name carved into stone made my chest tighten, but I knew I had to do it. It wasn't closure, nothing could ever feel closed about this, but it was something I needed to face. I brought flowers, the kind he used to buy me on random days. Just because. The cemetery was quiet, the kind of silence that presses down on you and amplifies every thought. As I walked toward his grave, my legs felt heavier with each step. When I saw his name etched into the marble, my knees buckled. There it was, so final, so permanent. I knelt down, tracing the letters with my fingers, my tears falling onto the cold stone. "I'm sorry," I whispered, though I wasn't even sure what I was apologizing for. Maybe for not being awake that day. Maybe for not being able to save him. Maybe just for being here when he wasn't. I sat there for hours, talking to him like he could hear me. I told him about the days since he'd been gone, about how lost I felt without him. I told him I still wore the ring, that I would never take it off. It was the only piece of him I had left. My parents had been distant at first, unsure of how to help me. But after seeing how much I was struggling, they decided to step in. They started taking me to psychologists, spending money they didn't have to try and help me cope. Over the course of months, they spent nearly $20,000 on therapy. The sessions were grueling. I had to relive everything, talk about him, talk about the accident, talk about the life we had planned and the life I was now living without him. The therapist told me I had to let go, but how do you let go of the person who was your whole world? It felt impossible, but slowly, their words began to sink in. They taught me how to breathe through the pain, how to take small steps forward, even if it felt wrong. It helped, but it didn't fix everything. Nothing could. I still missed him every second of every day. I still wore the ring, twisting it around my finger whenever I felt overwhelmed. Therapy gave me tools to manage the pain, but it didn't take it away. It taught me how to function, how to get out of bed, how to eat, how to breathe without feeling like my chest was collapsing. But the ache of missing him was constant, like a low hum in the background of everything I did. I started small. Cooking meals again, taking walks, even sitting in a cafe just to feel human. These little steps felt monumental, but each one came with a shadow of guilt. Every time I laughed at something or felt a fleeting moment of happiness, I'd catch myself and think, how dare I? He's gone, and I'm here, living without him. My parents were relentless in their support. They drove me to therapy, paid for everything, and tried to make my days as manageable as possible. I know they were trying to fix me in their own way, but they couldn't. Only time could do that. One day, my mom came over with a box. She had packed some of his things, the jacket he always wore, the watch he loved, a few photographs of us. "These should be with you," she said softly. At first, I couldn't bring myself to open it. Just the thought of seeing his things, touching them, felt like opening a wound that had barely started to heal. But one night, when the house was quiet and the weight of the silence felt unbearable, I opened it. The jacket still smelled like him, faint but unmistakable. I held it to my chest and cried for hours. The photos were a bittersweet reminder of everything we had, everything we lost. I started keeping the box by my bed, like a piece of him was still with me. It didn't make the pain go away, but it brought a strange kind of comfort. It was almost a year before I even thought about seeing someone else. I wasn't looking for it. In fact, the idea felt impossible, like a betrayal of everything we'd had. But life has a way of surprising you, even when you're not ready for it. I met him through a mutual friend. He was kind, understanding, and patient, qualities I didn't know I needed. At first, I kept him at arm's length, terrified of letting anyone in. My heart still belonged to someone else, and I couldn't imagine sharing it with anyone again. But he didn't push. He simply showed up, bringing coffee on hard days, making me laugh when I didn't think I could, listening when I needed to talk about the man I had lost. He never asked me to stop loving him. Our first date was awkward. I caught myself comparing everything, how he smiled, how he spoke, how he held my hand. It wasn't fair, but I couldn't stop. I kept the ring on my finger, twisting it nervously the entire night. He noticed, but he didn't say a word. As weeks turned into months, he became a part of my routine, and I started to feel something I hadn't felt in so long, a glimmer of hope. It wasn't the same as what I had with him. It never could be. But it was something. As our relationship grew, so did the complexity of it all. I cared for him deeply, but there was always a part of me that felt stuck in the past. My fiancé, the man I had planned my entire future with, was still at the forefront of my heart. And the ring, always on my finger, was a constant reminder of that. He never asked me to take it off. Not once. Even when I caught him glancing at it during quiet moments, he never brought it up. I think he understood, in his own way, that it wasn't something I could let go of, not yet. Maybe not ever. But there were moments when the weight of it all became too much. We'd be talking about something mundane, what to have for dinner, a movie we wanted to watch, and suddenly, I'd feel this overwhelming sense of guilt. He deserved someone who could give him everything, and I wasn't sure I could do that. Part of me was still holding on to the life I was supposed to have, the one that ended the moment I woke up in that hospital bed. It caused tension. There were days when he tried to get close, and I'd pull away, unable to explain why. He was patient, but I could see the frustration in his eyes sometimes, the unspoken questions, will I ever be enough? Can she ever love me the way I love her? We had arguments, some small, some explosive. Once, he asked me why I didn't want to plan a trip together, and I blurted out something I didn't even mean. What's the point? Plans don't work out. I saw the hurt on his face, and it crushed me. I didn't mean to push him away, but it was like there was a wall around my heart that I didn't know how to tear down. The breaking point came during one of our arguments. It started over something small, I can't even remember what, but it quickly spiraled into something deeper. You're still living in the past, he said, his voice calm but firm. I know you loved him. I know you'll always love him. But I'm here, and I don't know how much longer I can keep waiting for you to let me in. I didn't say anything at first. His words hit me hard, not because they were unfair, but because they were true. I had been holding back, clinging to the life I lost, afraid to fully embrace the one I had now. I don't know how to move on, I finally admitted, my voice trembling. I don't know if I can. Every time I try, it feels like I'm betraying him. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. You're not betraying him. Loving someone else doesn't mean you stop loving him. It just means you're allowing yourself to live again. I broke down. All the emotions I had been holding in for so long came pouring out. The guilt, the pain, the fear. I told him everything. How I felt like I didn't deserve to be happy. How I was terrified of losing someone again. How I didn't know if I could ever fully love anyone the way I loved him. To my surprise, he didn't get angry or walk away. Instead, he pulled me into his arms and held me while I cried. I don't need all of you, he said softly. Just what you're able to give. We'll figure the rest out together. After our argument, there was a long silence between us. He sat on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands, while I stared at the floor, trying to gather the courage to say what I knew I needed to say. It's not fair to you, I started, my voice barely above a whisper. You're a good man, and you've done everything right. But I think the reason I'm with you is because you remind me of him. He looked up at me, his eyes searching mine, and I forced myself to keep going. You have so many of the same qualities. Kindness, patience, the way you smile, the way you care about people. It's like being with you lets me hold on to a piece of him, even though I know that's not fair to you. I could see the hurt in his expression, but he didn't say anything, so I kept talking, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I don't know if I'm capable of loving you the way you deserve. I'm still in love with him, and maybe I always will be. And maybe I saw him in you and thought that would be enough. But it's not. You deserve someone who sees you for you, not someone who's clinging to a memory. Tears welled in his eyes, but he didn't look angry. Instead, he nodded slowly, like he had been waiting for this moment, too. I always wondered, he said quietly, if that's why you stayed. If I was just a shadow of what you lost. I felt a lump in my throat, but I couldn't deny it. You're not a shadow, I said. You're your own person. And you deserve so much more than what I can give you. I'm sorry. To my surprise, he reached out and took my hand. You don't have to apologize, he said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. I understand now. And I'm not angry. I wish things were different. We sat there for a while, holding hands in the quiet, both of us trying to come to terms with what this meant. He apologized for pushing me, for not seeing how deep my pain went, and I apologize for not being honest sooner. In that moment, there was no anger, no blame, just two people trying to navigate the messiness of grief and love and loss. The story closes with her realizing that while her love for her late fiancé will never fade, she owes it to herself and those around her to keep moving forward, even if the path isn't always clear. After that conversation, things between us shifted. He gave me space, and I gave him honesty. It wasn't perfect, it never could be, but we found a balance of sorts. He didn't push me to move on any faster than I could, and I tried harder to acknowledge the person he was, not just the echoes of the man I lost. Life settled into something quieter, more manageable. My days were filled with caring for our children and finding small moments of joy where I could. My grief was still there, a constant shadow, but it didn't suffocate me the way it used to. I kept wearing the ring. He never asked me to take it off, and I never offered. It wasn't just a symbol of my love for my late fiancé. It was a part of me, a reminder of the person I had been before everything fell apart. One evening, while the kids were asleep, he sat down beside me on the couch. "You know," he said, his voice calm, "I don't think you'll ever stop loving him. And that's okay. I wouldn't want you to." I looked at him, surprised by the tenderness in his words. "I've come to realize," he continued, "that being with you means accepting all of you. And that includes the parts of you that are still in love with him. I'm okay with that. I just want to be here for you, however you need me to be." His words broke something in me, not in a painful way, but in a way that made me feel lighter, freer. For the first time, I felt like I didn't have to choose between loving him and remembering the man I lost. Living without him will always be the hardest thing I've ever had to do. There are days when the pain resurfaces, when I catch a glimpse of something that reminds me of him, a song, a scent, a place, and it feels like the wound has been reopened. But I've learned that grief doesn't have to consume me. It's not easy to love someone who's no longer here, but I've come to understand that love doesn't disappear. It changes, it softens, but it never goes away. He will always be a part of me, of who I am, and that's okay. But I can't live my life trapped in the past. I can't keep punishing myself for surviving when he didn't. I can't keep holding back from the people who are still here, who love me, who need me. My son is a constant reminder of that. Every time I look at him, I see the future, his curiosity, his laughter, his little hands reaching for mine. He deserves a mother who is present, who loves him fully, who teaches him how precious life is. And my husband, the man who stayed by my side despite everything, deserves someone who tries. Someone who doesn't let the past eclipse the present. He may never have all of me, but he has my gratitude, my respect, and the part of my heart that still has room for love. This event will forever be a part of my story, but it doesn't have to define me. I've realized that life, messy, unpredictable, fragile life, is the most valuable thing we have. It's a gift, even when it doesn't feel that way. I still wear the ring. Not as a way to hold on to the past, but as a reminder of the love I was lucky enough to have, even if it was for too short a time. It reminds me to cherish the moments I have now, to live for myself, for my family, and for the people who love me. As I watch my son play, his laughter filling the room, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Hope that life, even with its heartbreaks, is still worth living. I'll always carry him with me, but I've learned that moving forward doesn't mean leaving him behind. It means honoring him by living the life he would have wanted for me. A life filled with love, gratitude, and the determination to find joy in the here and now. Thank you for allowing me to share this journey.